What's up, everyone? It's been about 2 weeks since UFC 300, and now that everything has marinated, it's time to matchmake everyone who fought on this card, starting from the main card down to notable people in the prelims and early prelims. First up is Bo Nickel. Bo Nickel is proving fight after fight that he is extremely talented and elite, but he's not proving it against the elite of the elite. This is why I like to see him matched up against a ranked fighter. I think the best match you can make is Bo versus Kyle Barhao. Kyle is another up-and-coming contender on a huge 12-win streak with 8 finishes. I think this could be an absolute banger that would certainly end with a finish. Both fighters can grapple and strike at will, and this will determine if Bo is a fraud or not. Even as Kyle loses against Paul Craig on 301, I still think this is the match to make. This could be a really good fight night main event. But if the UFC doesn't want this, which is understandable, especially if Kyle loses, I'd love to see Bo against Anthony Hernandez, who is coming off a huge win at 299. I honestly think he could defend Bo's wrestling after seeing his performance at 299. Cody Brundage. Cody Brundage is now 10-6, which is obviously not the best of records, but nonetheless he's still talented and deserves to be considered good in the middleweight division. He stood his ground a couple times with a fighter levels above him in Bo Nickel, but he still needs steps before he becomes a contender. I'd like to see him against Owen Elliott for a good little scrap. Now it's time for the big names. Next up is Charles Oliveira. That has to be Gamrot. There's only one way to tell if Father Time is catching up to Dubronx, and it's to see him against another young contender. Charles already proved himself against vets like Chandler, Dariush, and Gaethje, but that Charles could be different from today's Charles for all we know. For Gamrot's case, he's the only serious contender after Arman after Gaethje got slept, so if he wins, Gamrot will fully deserve a title shot. Maybe in a year or two, I'd like to see Charles face Renato Moicano, but Moicano still needs a bit more experience before going up against an assassin like Charles. Arman Sarukian. There's no other choice for Arman other than the winner of Islam vs Poirier, which, let's be honest, Islam is going to rip Dustin's head off. There's really not much to say here. I think Arman has the highest chance of defeating Islam in the entire UFC. He's fought him before and only has improved since then. Justin Gaethje. I'd like to see Gaethje take some time off after that beating and getting slept, and that fight was most likely his last chance at a title shot, so I don't see him going against the top 5 guy anytime soon. A good test to see where Gaethje is at and a good scrap would be against a lower ranked striker like Dan Hooker or Jalen Turner. If I had to choose between the two, it'd be Dan Hooker because the experience he has over Turner gives him the edge, and he would actually have a chance against Justin. Plus, Turner just got KO'd by Moicano. Gaethje only has about 2 or 3 fights in him left, and we all want to see some huge highlights from the highlight himself, so why not give him some stand and bang fights? Max Holloway. Max could do whatever the fuck he wants after that fight. He could fight Taporia, make a case for Islam, finally get revenge on Volk. He could liberate Hawaii into his own country if he wants to. But ultimately, I like to see him against Taporia, and it's definitely looking like that's going to happen as of now. I'm the most excited for this potential fight out of any other potential fight in the UFC. Even more than Sugar versus Taporia if that's ever going to happen. This would be an absolute classic, and although I think Taporia has it, we learned you can never count Max out. This would be a bloodbath and should definitely be at the Bernabeu in Spain. Weili Zhang. Has to be Tatiana Suarez. She's the #1 contender and is still undefeated. This would be Zhang's last roadblock until a super fight. I want to say a super fight right now because Grasso and Zhang haven't defended their belt too many times, and I personally think you need 3 to 4 defenses until a super fight, so yeah. Yan Xiaonan. I would say the matchup should be against Jessica Andrade. Andrade is coming off a dub at 300 against Marina Rodriguez, and she looked really good. A win for her should shoot her straight into title shot talks, and even though Yang got dominated for 5 rounds, she showed how much heart she has, and she could still potentially be a champion, just not when Zhang has the belt. Jamal Hill. I know Hill vs Roundtree was just announced and it kind of screwed up my script, but I really liked the matchup, and previously wanted to see Roundtree versus Jan Blachowicz, but oh well. I really think Roundtree is champion material, and this could give him the title shot next if he comes victorious. For Hill, he's maybe 2 wins behind, or an impressive win over a contender for a title shot. My original pick for Jamal was against Yuri for a #1 contender fight, and I think Yuri gets it done against him. Alex Pereira. Finally, I like to see Magomed Ankalaev against the lightweight champion of the world, Alex Pereira. Ankalaev is one, if not the only guy in the division with a chance against Pereira, mainly with his elite grappling. And if Pereira learned takedown defense or grappling after all this time, Magomed can also be a really good striker, seeing how he just knocked out Johnny Walker not too long ago. He's 100% next up in line and honestly has a really good chance to shock the world. Starting off with the prelims, we have Yuri Prohaska. Before Hill vs Roundtree was announced, I want to see Hill vs Yuri for a #1 contender fight, as I mentioned before, but since that's not the picture, I want to see Yuri versus Johnny Walker. Walker is coming off a KO loss to Ankalaev, but there's not really much competition in this division, and everyone else would just get eaten alive by Yuri. I would want to see this fight from more of an entertaining aspect rather than climbing the ranks aspect, because we've all seen how both these fighters are not afraid to take risks and do some wild stuff. There's also been talks about Yuri going to middleweight, and if that were to happen, he should immediately get Jack Hermanson, who just fraud checked Joe Pyfer. Next is Aljamain Sterling. Aljo 100% needs a top 5 guy, and that might be a little biased because I love Aljo. That being said, the streets need Aljo vs Brian Ortega. Won't be the most exciting of matches unless you really like grappling, but if either fighter wins, they have a case for a title shot. Some people might disagree with me because Aljo only has one featherweight win, but people forget he was the dominant champion until last year, so I don't see why the UFC wouldn't bless him just a bit. Ortega's coming off a comeback win against Yair Rodriguez, and he really proved a lot of people wrong in that fight. A lot of people counted him out, and there was talk saying, why is he in the top 5, saying he's really inactive, and it was just a really good one for him. Kayla Harrison. There's not much to say other than that she can save the women's bantamweight division after Nunes retired, being she's way more exciting than Raquel Pennington and everyone else in that division. That being said, the UFC should give her an immediate title shot because she's the only one in the division with the hype. Diego Lopez. Diego's really proving he's elite after a huge KO win against Sodiq Yusuff, but it's still a couple roadblocks away from being a serious contender. I think to put his name in the contender conversation, he needs to fight Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell was unfortunately brutally murdered by Josh Emmett at 296, but thankfully his teammate got his card in time and he rebooted him. Bryce really lost his hype since then, and if he comes out against a huge win against Diego, he'll reclaim a lot of it back. Renato Money Moicano. Moicano versus the loser of McGregor versus Chandler. This might seem a little bit abstract, but hear me out. It's time for both Chandler and Conor to give the younger guys a chance. And if either of them win, I think the UFC will give them a bigger fight, like the BMF title fight, rather than the one that makes sense. I wouldn't even be shocked if Dana gave Conor a title shot if he wins. If Moicano grabs a dub against either of these guys that are highly experienced vets, he'll prove he's elite and a top contender. Jessica Andrade. She should fight Rose Namajunas or Yan Jianan, like I said before. Bobby Green. He should fight Jalen Turner to avenge getting crucified by him and to see who really belongs in the top 15. Davidson Figueiredo. Figueiredo vs Marlon Vera is the fight to make. Figueiredo is quietly making a case for the title shot, and if he wins against Cheeto, he's one win away from the title shot against the future champion Merab. I think if this fight happens, we could see Cheeto get finished for the first time. We all know Figueiredo has crazy knockout power. We just saw him submit Cody Garbrandt, but ultimately, I don't think he has enough what it takes to be the bantamweight champion. Cody Garbrandt. It's been a tough couple of years for Cody, and although it was looking good for him a bit before 300, I don't think the past champion will make much noise anymore. I want to see him and Dominic Cruz run it back for old time's sake. I honestly have no clue who'd win, and I love fights like that. Garbrandt probably has the edge over Cruz because he's been more active, but, you know, anything could destroy his chin. Anyways, guys, that's the video. Please like and subscribe. I put a lot of work into this, and comment if you guys agree, disagree, and comment what MMA videos you'd like to see me make. This was my first video, so let me know what I can improve on, what I should scrap, and yeah, see you guys.